What happened on the final day? We hope it's the final day of testimony in the Lori Vallow daybell case. Yes, day 7 is in the history books. And I'm going to tell you why we're not sure it's the last day, but we think it's the last day of testimony. I'm going to recap the entire interesting day right after this introduction. Hello, welcome back to the channel. I'm Rebecca, the host of Crafting and Crime Daily. This is the show where I recap live trials, so you guys have something to listen to while you're crafting, or well, maybe you're at lunch. I don't know when you're listening to this, but I'm so glad you subscribed, and that if you haven't subscribed, please do and hit that thumbs up. Please, it helps the algorithm. Now, let's talk about the final day, what we hope is the final day of testimony in the Lori Vallow daybell case up there in Arizona, where she is being tried for the murder of her 4th husband, Charles Vallow. Now, she's already been convicted in Idaho and is serving a 3 life sentences without the possibility of parole for conspiracy to commit the murder of her 2 children, Tylee Ryan, JJ Vallow, and Chad Daybell's wife, Tammy Daybell. Someone asked me, now, if she gets convicted in this, does she go to prison in Arizona or back to Idaho? I don't know. I have no idea. That's a great question. And if anybody knows, let me know in the comments. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. She hasn't been convicted yet. So day 7 of the testimony in this Charles Vallow murder case, we hear from the case agent, Nathan Duncan. Now, he's been sitting at the prosecution table for the entire trial. So he's heard all of the testimony. And a lot of it's important that he heard it, especially like Adam when he told the story of Nephi, because that's going to come up during his testimony. So the initial case agent was Detective Moffat. So remember, July 11th, when this murder occurs, now the cavalry's coming. They think that this, 911 was called at 8:35 by Alex. They think the shooting has just occurred. They all come out. And they're waiting to get a search warrant to go in the house. The only people that have entered the house were the initial officer and the fire rescue people to save Charles's life if they could. They couldn't. They had to back out of the house after it was cleared. They backed out of the house. Now they're all waiting out in the driveway, conversing, waiting for search warrants, trying to figure out who's going to do what. So Nathan Duncan was there that day, and he was assigned to assist Detective Coombs with processing the crime scene. So when they finally get the search warrant, he enters the home. He sees Charles on the floor. He sees blood in the webbing of his left hand, the fingers of his left hand. So, and there's no pooling of blood underneath the left hand. He says there was not a large amount of blood on this scene until he's taken away by the medical examiner's office and they moved his body. They see this blood. So initially on the scene, they're just sort of canvassing for, where they see that he's been shot twice. He's on the floor, but their information was that he came at and hit Alex with a baseball bat over the head. So the assumption is, that Alex shot him twice while Charles was standing up. So now they're looking around, they know there's an exit wound in the back of Charles. So now they're seeing, where did this projectile go? And they're looking at the walls and they're looking at windows. They're not finding this projectile or evidence of where it might hit until the body is removed. And then this detective sees a defect in the floor. And he says he is 100% positive that that defect came from the projectile that went through Charles's left chest as he was lying on the floor. So then after that, he was the officer that they look around the apartment for blood because they figure Alex has got a head wound. He must be bleeding. He must have touched something. They don't find any. I think they found something in the bathroom sink or the kitchen sink, one of the sinks. And then he goes into the pink room where Alex had stayed the night before, where the gun case was, where the gun was. He was asked, was there a lock on the case for the gun? Was there a lock there? No. So Alex brought an unsecured weapon into that house with a 7-year-old autistic boy. 45 caliber semi-automatic weapon. So he finds the weapon. He realizes there is one projectile in the chamber, and he gets that out of the chamber, and he packages everything up for evidence. Then, in June of 2020, Detective Moffat, the case agent, gets promoted. Now, when you get promoted in the Chandler Police Department, you have to go back out to patrol for a little while. And Detective Moffat turned this case over to Detective Duncan. Now, Detective Duncan had been working on other cases, but also working on this case in the background, helping them go through the voluminous documentation that they were getting from all these cell phone records and data extractions. Because the people who extracted the data, they don't analyze it. They just give it to the detectives and they have to analyze it. So that's what he was assisting in doing. So he was familiar with the case. So this is the point where the prosecution now spends the entire rest of the day getting these records into evidence. So the first was the cell phone extractions from Charles's phone. There were multiple email communications between Charles and Lori. Obviously, they're married, separated, but they're married. But he says there comes a period of time where you see the tone of these emails start to change. And then he found a copy of the email that Alex testified that he had seen a copy of as well, that was sent from an email account, kwalker@yahoo.com. It was sent to Chad Daybell, purporting to have come from Charles, inviting him to come to Houston, where Charles was living, to write a book about him. Now, Charles was like, I didn't send this email. So this detective sees that email, and he's trying to figure out who did this email actually come from. It didn't really come from Charles. It came from this K. Walker account. So he gets a search warrant for the account records for K. Walker at yahoo.com. Yahoo sends the paperwork over. The account was created in April of 2018. And in the name of Karen Walker. But the phone number on the application for the account is Lori Vallow. So Lori sent that email to her lover, Chad Daybell, inviting him to come to Houston. This is also the time frame for one of those preparing the people conferences. So she's sending that to Chad, just in case Chad's wife sees the email. So Chad's wife thinks, oh, he's going to Houston to write a book about this guy, Charles, not to be with his lover, Lori. Anyway. So Charles, obviously now he's saved this email. He confronts Chad and Chad's wife, Tammy, through emails. And this is only a couple of weeks before the murder. Now, this detective said the morning that Charles, I'm trying to keep these names straight. The morning that Charles arrives at Lori's house to pick up JJ, this was the first time that he had seen Lori in person since discovering her affair with Chad Daybell. Then we see a timeline of messages sent between Charles and Adam. Now, remember I said I suspected, because Charles arrives at Lori's house at 7:31 a.m. Supposed to be there at 7:30. He gets there at 7:31. He doesn't enter that home until 7:37. And I said, I suspect he's in his car communicating with Adam. He was. So from 7:31 to 7:36, there are multiple text messages going back and forth between Charles, and Lori's brother, Adam, the sane one. And this is where Charles is informing Adam, hey, Alex is here at the house. Alex, who was supposed to pick you up at the airport yesterday but didn't show up, and you were supposed to stay at his house but he never called you back. He's here at Lori's house. So at 7:37, well, just before that, the last communication by Charles to him is, what you do is up to you, with this information. So at 7:37, the next message sent from Adam to Charles is, I'm going to put the pressure on and have him come get me now. So he is going to text his brother Alex, who's inside that house, come get me now. And he does. We hear later on through other documentation that's entered into evidence that communication did happen between Alex and Adam, but Alex never responded to him. And that message that Adam sent to Charles saying that he was going to put the pressure on Alex was never read until 12:13. Now, by then, Charles is dead. So Lori is reading this message. And there's another message like almost simultaneous to that saying, okay. That was from Alex to Charles, and that was also read at 12:13. Interesting. Then at 7:49 a.m., there's a message from Alex. There's a message from Adam to Charles saying that he and his son Zach are going to the Stakes Center to play basketball, where they had hoped to meet up that night with the state president after confronting Lori, but none of this ever happens. Then there was a whole bunch of documentation entered into evidence, communications between Lori and Alex through her iCloud account, Lori for Style. And really indicating that she had gone through his phone, probably went through his phone that day after the interview. Because there's an image of Charles's phone. Like she has the phone, like there's a picture of a phone. In her account, there's a picture. And if you look at this picture, it's a picture of a phone with a text on the phone. And in this text is the flight information for Alex. So now she's starting to piece together. Okay, Charles had Alex's flight information. And this is actually on Alex's phone, but was sent to Lori's phone 2 days after the murder. Then there were several communications between Chad Daybell and Lori, going back to November of 2018. There was a recording from Chad to Lori, and we don't hear this recording because I was waiting. I was going to, we want to hear this. But this is when this detective learned through his investigation that they were referring to Charles as this dark spirit, and they were calling him Ned Schneider. So Ned is mentioned in several communications between Lori and Chad and Alex and Lori. Then Lori creates another account, another Google account, Lolly Time. After Charles learns about the affair, she creates this new account, Lolly Time. And there's a lot of emails and texts to someone named Buddy. So they're trying to figure out, okay, who is this Buddy? So they do a search warrant for that account information and learn that that is Chad Daybell. And some of those texts were screenshots of life insurance beneficiary information that she is sending to Chad. Lots of communication between Lori and Alex on July 9th. She wants him to come over to her house. He's never been there, and she provides him with the address. And there's different information. She's also at the same time, July 9th, texting her niece, Melanie Boudreau, who's now known as Melanie Pulowski. I know, more players in this thing. She's asking Alex, stay close to me. This is all going to come to a head this week. One of the texts she sent Alex, I do want to read to you. She said, getting sleepy. So I'm going to need you to stay close to me the next couple of days. Remember, this is sent on the 9th, 2 days before the murder. I'm getting sleepy, so I'm going to need you to stay close to me the next couple of days. Mel, too. She's referring to Melanie. She can't go to Utah. So Mel had planned to go to Utah for a wedding. She can't go to Utah. They are planning some kind of intervention, but want Mel out of the way, so I'm left alone. I need to come get the stuff at your house tomorrow and secure it. Lots to do. Thank you for standing by me. It's all coming to a head this week. I will be like Nephi, I am told, and so will you. Now, as you recall, when Adam got on the stand and told the story of Nephi, Nephi was a prophet who was ordered to murder someone by God. So basically, it was okay because God asked him to do it. She's going to be like Nephi, and so is he. So then there's communications between Lori and Mel. Don't go to the wedding, pretend you're sick. And so Melanie, who's also under Lori's control, she's bought this whole religious thing, hook, line, and sinker, as has Alex. And Lori's thinking if she leaves, she won't be there to help protect her. But then in a text, Melanie is telling her, I really did want to go to this wedding. And so one of the texts, Lori says, you could leave Thursday night. Thursday night was July 11th, and still make it to the wedding. Can you say, let's put a nail in her coffin? Oh my God. Okay. So after this, in September, she is referring to Adam as Z, and had been since as early as January. What she's saying is that, and this is to Alex, that her brother Adam is a zombie and has been since back in January. That Ned, Charles, recruited him. And Zach as well, Charles's son. He's a zombie too. Yeah, craziness. It's crazy. All right, what else am I missing here? Oh, then the text between Chad and Lori. So if you look at text communications between Chad and Lori before the murder, there's no romantic content to them. After the murder, there's all kinds of obvious romantic messages, including this story of James and Elena. Now, if you've never heard this, they refer to themselves as James and Elena, characters from the Book of Mormon or the Bible or something. I don't remember, but I read that story in an episode. Here's a link to that if you want to hear that story. It's kind of graphic. This was sent to Lori in a series of emails by Chad. Yeah, just saying. So all of this is in evidence now. All of this. There were texts between her and Chad discussing the fact that she's not the beneficiary anymore. And he says, well, do you think someone changed the beneficiary after he was shot 2 times in the chest? And she's like, no, he changed it back in March. And they were trying to figure out, well, who's the beneficiary? Because she didn't know. They wouldn't tell her. She's like, at first she's like, it's either Kay or I forget who else. And then they figured out, oh, it's Kay. Anyway. So now we get cross-examination by Lori. And Lori is all over this guy. About testing stuff from the crime scene. Why didn't you test the bat? So she wanted to know why the bat was not tested for DNA, first of all. And he says, well, because we didn't think it would result in any evidence that really would make a difference, because the bat's in the house. We know that Tylee touched it. We know that Charles probably touched it. We know that Alex touched it. You live in that house. You probably touched it. It doesn't going to give us any information that we don't already know. The bat's in the house. Then she wanted to know, well, didn't you luminol the bat? Now, he said, no, there was no evidence that the bat had been cleaned. So on redirect, the prosecutor points out that luminol is used when they think a surface has been cleaned from this. Someone's trying to clean the blood stain off the surface. In this case, there was no evidence. He says, we didn't see any visible blood. And no, we didn't luminol it. Because they're thinking, they came on this scene, this had just happened, that they weren't coming into a scene that had been cleaned up. Then he said they did no digital download of Alex's phone. They did not feel like it was necessary. And so she's all over him. Why? You didn't properly investigate this. Yeah. So he said, she wanted to know, did you conduct or watch the interview conducted of my mom, my dad, Summer, Melanie, all of her family members? No, I didn't. The only one he really focused on was Alex. The only one you focused on was my estranged brother, Alex. Again, testifying. Then she wanted to know, did you know that there are 4 books? Well, first of all, that there are 12 books in the Book of Mormon. I didn't know that. And I don't remember what his answer was, but it doesn't matter because she's just trying to testify. And 4 of those 12 books are about Nephi, stories of Nephi. And there's 4 different Nephi, 4 different prophets that are referred to as Nephi. So how did you know which Nephi I was referring to in my communications? Which is a good question. He says, because I listened to Adam's testimony about the story of Nephi. And he says, I talked to a lot of LDS members. And when I asked them about the story of Nephi, I got the same answer from everyone. And it all matched what Adam had said, that this was about this prophet who was told by God to kill someone. And it was okay because he was instructed to by God. And she says, well, there's 25 stories about Nephi. Okay. Then she said, well, did you know my brother was a stand-up comedian? Now, I've seen his stand-up, not particularly funny, but he jokes about when he assaulted her third husband, Joe Ryan, during his stand-up set. It's not really funny. Anyway, and how did you know all those communications weren't just a joke? Okay. What else? Then there were questions from the jury, but nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing. Then the prosecution rests their case, and the jury is excused for the day. But he says, "Don't leave yet. I'm going to come back and let you know when to come back tomorrow." So the jury's back there waiting, and so he asks Lori, "Are you going to put on any evidence?" She says, "Well, I need to talk to my counsel." So she spends a few minutes talking to her counsel, and then she says, "I need to make my Rule 20 motion." So they must have told her, "Oh, here, now's the time. You've got it written out here. Now's the time," because she was reading it. Rule 20 is that motion for judgment of acquittal that the defense typically always does at the close of the prosecution's case, saying that in the light most favorable to the prosecution, that there's not enough evidence that a jury could conclude that she conspired to commit first-degree murder of her then husband, Charles Vallow. And the judge was like, not so fast. He denied the motion and said, no, there is sufficient evidence that a jury could conclude this. And then asked her again, are you going to put on any evidence? Are you going to testify? And she said no. And he goes, okay, can I bring the jury back in here and have you rest in front of the jury? And right before that, they had decided they would do closings on Monday. And she's like, well, can I have till Monday? Can I do it on Monday? And he says, well, if you change your mind, you've got to let me know before Monday because I got to change the jury instructions. And she said, oh, yeah, I'll let you know. So that's why we don't know if she's putting on any evidence or not. Is she going to sit and think about it for the next 4 days, 3 days, about whether she wants to testify, whether she wants to put on any evidence? If so, what? Or she may just come in on Monday and say she rests in front of the jury, and then the judge reads the jury instructions. And the reason it's been put off till Monday and they weren't doing it today is because they had to go over the jury instructions first. He gave them a draft yesterday to review overnight. They were going to go over them this morning. The prosecution was afraid that she would not have enough time for her rebuttal argument, and that would get moved to Monday. She didn't want to break that up. She wants it all done on one day. And Lori said, I don't know if I'm even going to have enough time to review. She needed to get back to the prison, review the jury instructions, and then talk to her advisory council about it tomorrow when she gets there. And she says, I don't know that I'm going to have enough time either, and I'm okay with Monday for closing. So he agreed to do closings on Monday. I know. And Tuesday is the openings of Karen Reed. So we're just going to go right into the next case after this. All right, that's the testimony. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.